Hi everyone, welcome to After Class
a podcast by two passionate adult ballerinas about all things adult ballet related.
and some random thoughts in between.
We're so glad you're here.
So grab your water bottle
Or a cup of coffee.
and join us for a quick chat after class.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of After Class. Today, we're going to talk about 3 ways that you can transform your dancing right now. If you want to dance more like a professional dancer, but with minimal amount of effort, in this episode, we're going to dive into 3 game-changing details. So we're going to talk about hands, eyes, and head placement. So whether you're dancing at home or in a studio, these tips will instantly elevate your lines and your confidence. So let's get into it. Hello, Yelena.
Hello everyone.
So to jump in, maybe we could start with talking about hands because, like I said in the intro, there's some really easy ways to elevate your technique, your artistry, and to look more like professional that don't involve having to spend months working on your flexibility or months working on getting your double pirouette. A lot of the things that we think of that make us look like a more advanced dancer take a lot of time to work on. But there are things that you can literally do now, like in your next class, to make you look more advanced. So maybe we could start by talking about our hands.
Yeah, those are things that teachers don't have much time some of the times at classes to talk about, and we oversee it and it's overlooked, the allonges especially. And sometimes, especially when we are adults and we're beginners, we spend our entire life seeing ballet, focusing on the physical part of it, the turnout, lifting legs really high. You hear a lot of adults saying, if I don't have a high arabesque, I can't do a pretty arabesque. Or if I don't have flexibility, I shouldn't be doing ballet. And that's not the key, really. The key of doing ballet is enjoying the dance part of it. It's not just the physical, right? So that's why we actually could focus a little bit more on how to fully extend that allonge, following the entire line. Don't cut in the line by just dropping the fingers down, but actually focusing more in a long, elongated line that finish all the way to the fingertips.
Yeah, and I think a common mistake that I see in beginner dancers, and it makes sense because a lot of times teachers will say that you need to have energy in your fingers. And sometimes that translates into the claw look of the hand because students are trying to implement that correction of having energy. So they put energy in their fingers, but it ends up being energy that is very stiff and claw like versus having soft energy or almost thinking about your fingers as being active but without tension. So you don't want them to be overly stiff and you don't want them to be limp either. You want there to be
Yeah.
soft energy in your hands.
Yeah, so allonge is fully finishing on a straight line. However, imagine that you are on water and you are just sustaining the position. You are not holding fully contracted and clawed like we talked. Think more about being on the water. And the stiffer you get in water, the faster you sink. So think about that. Having your arms onto water, even now that it's summer. Go to the pool, and once you're in the pool, try to do a first arabesque with your arms, and think about the arm extended by your side on top of that water and your fingers. A really lovely tip that I always love teaching everyone is your fingertips don't look down, they look straight in front of you. So your fingertips, imagine that they're going to paint the walls or the space in front of you. That way you make sure that your hands is fully facing forward, never falling down or going too high. Fingertips right in front of you, and they are just going to elongate and trying to reach to either side. Try to feel that energy in both directions, like someone is pulling you and just pulling away from the center of your body through the fingertips. So I think about that when doing an allonge.
And I think thinking of your hands as a continuation of whatever movement you're doing, not as something separate. So if you're extending your arm, letting that extension, as it travels down from your shoulder, your elbow, your wrist, like you said, letting it flow out your fingertips. So it's not a separate movement, it's just a continuation, almost like breathing. I think sometimes when I think of hands and allonge, I think of breath and how as we breathe, our breaths are just flowing
Yeah.
into each other.
That's a really great tip. Try to get into in front of the mirror and do your allonges with a breath in and breath out.
And it's interesting because I think, at least for me, when I think of some of the dancers that I enjoy watching the most, professional dancers, they have such beautiful hands. And again, like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, it's such a small thing when you compare it to doing like 180-degree penché or doing 5 pirouettes. It seems like, oh, the hands, like, would that really matter? But it really is such a important detail that the eye really does catch, like, when you're watching someone dance, even someone who's not trained in ballet, when they
Yeah,
watch
exactly.
dance, they notice the hands and what the hands are doing, and if there's tension there, if they're in a weird shape, so that's a really easy thing to adjust no matter what level you're at. I mean, that's something that you can literally go into your next class and start thinking about your hands, and you'll immediately see results from that. Hey, adult dancer. Do you love the podcast and want more resources, news, and tips to support your ballet goals? Head over to thebusybunhead.com, your source for all things adult ballet. Stay in the know, find community, and fuel your motivation with resources like the bulletin board, a free monthly newsletter, and the Bunhead Book Club. Brand new to ballet? Book a session to get your questions answered. It's all waiting for you at thebusybunhead.com.
And that is directly connected to the eyes and
Mhm.
why it matters so much to actually follow your arms with your eyes, not with your head and your face, but with your eyes. And that's something really difficult to teach students, especially young students, because I spend hours of my classes saying every time you move one arm, look at it, but with intention. Don't just look in and out. No, as you're feeling that breathing, look at your fingers with your eyes, open to your second position, keep looking at your fingers, and then lift that side up. And that will be a perfect dancing moment on your simple demi plies at the bar. So you don't even need to wait until port de bras exercises in the center to dance just by doing demi plie. Look with intention your fingers and follow your fingers. Every time you do that, you will have a little bit more of that breathing intention from your chest, that breathing intention through your chin lifting and following lines, and that will just be the continuity of following with your eyes all the way to the end of that allongé that we were talking about.
And I know for especially beginner dancers, sometimes when you're starting and you're just trying to coordinate your feet and everything else that's going on, a lot of times people don't know where to look. And I remember this when I came back to ballet as an adult, like it had been so long. And I was like, what head, where is my head and my eyes and where is everything supposed to be? And I had a teacher who just said, when in doubt, follow your hand of the working arm. And honestly, yes, there are times when that is not maybe correct depending on the choreography, but I feel like that rule or just thinking that, follow your hand, that'll get you there like 90% of the time.
I would
If
say it exactly the same. All the time at the bar, the teacher will ask you to always, always, always follow that actioning arm that is away from the bar. And I know that we are trying to improve dancing to go at some point into the center. However, the bar is the base of everything. So if you start to remember, follow your arm, the actioning arm. Every time an arm moves, follow that one and start from the bar with intention. Seriously, look at it, see it, not just follow it, but see your arms, see your fingers.
Yeah, and I think a great way to start training this, because one of the things that happens with our eyes is because most of the time we're dancing in a room with a mirror, our eyes are looking at ourselves in the mirror. And so we're not training ourselves to follow our hand with our eyes. And so I think a great way to start being intentional about using your eyes is to practice without a mirror, because once you take out that option even of staring at yourself in the mirror, your eyes have to go somewhere. And so it's easier to start training yourself to look at your hand if you just take the mirror out of the equation at least some of the time while you practice, because it is hard. It's a hard habit to break when you're always practicing in
Exactly.
front of a mirror.
And it's a win-win situation in so many cases. Like by not practicing with a mirror all the time, you create that proprioception, that space awareness at the same time. So it's not just looking at your arms, feeling the movement. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, and I think with using your eyes, it also is really good to start training your ability to intentionally direct your gaze for spotting turns. Because again, if you're so trained to look at yourself in the mirror and then you're in a class and you're doing turns where you're facing the diagonal or you're starting a turn with your back to the mirror, if you haven't really trained yourself to be able to use your eyes to actually pick a spot and look at it intentionally, it will be much harder for you to spot
Yeah,
your turns. So it has,
exactly.
like, an aesthetic and a practical aspect to learn
Yeah.
how to use your eyes.
Space awareness, exactly. Like your eyes, I always say that your eyes are going to be the ones guiding you. And it's so important. Like if you look at it, I know that I'm always giving samples for different scenes, not just from ballet, but when we're climbing, we always say you have to look at where you're going to put your hand. You cannot put your hands without looking at it. Otherwise, you will never get that hold the way you need to because sometimes it's too far away, it's too short. So your eyes are going to dictate whether you get that hole, whether you can climb, or whether you fall or not. So in ballet, it's exactly the same. If you want to gain more balance, you actually need to put your eyes where you're going to go so your body can understand, okay, we are going to travel this much. I'm going to follow my arms. I can engage my core because as soon as you're confident looking at where you're going, and putting your mind and your eyes to where you have to go, your entire body will be engaged, will be ready for that movement. And that will give you so much balance, so much control of your body. And as you mentioned before, it doesn't just stay on your eyes. It also depends of your head, your neck, and your shin movement and where they are.
Yeah, so I think that's a perfect lead and even to just talking about your head, which use of your head and your shoulders, neck is called épaulement in ballet. So if you hear us using that term, that's what we're referring to. But talking specifically about using our head and the way that we tilt our chin, the way we lengthen through the neck, that's another really, really quick way to take your dancing to the next level. Similar to use of your eyes with following your hand, I feel like that also applies with the way that you're tilting your head. If you're thinking about looking at your hand and inclining your head in the direction that you're looking, a lot of the times that is going to be correct. Again, sometimes there might be choreography where there's a difference, but it's a great place to start wherever your eyes are going, also allowing your head to tip in that direction.
Something really important is think about when I said to you, oh, she looks very elegant, very sophisticated. What does come to mind? The first thing that comes to mind is shoulders down, long neck, chin up. Whether she's a dancer, he's a dancer or not, even if he's just a reporter. A good imagery to think about is imagine that you have very long earrings and you don't want them to touch your shoulders. And that would be a really lovely way to keep those shoulders down. And then think about that chest has a little line that goes to the diagonal all the way to the roof in front of you. And that would be a perfect way to just present yourself, even in the first position on the ballet class. You get to the bar, you have no idea what to do in ballet, but you go to do your chest diagonal up, shoulders down, because you have those very long earrings. And that's the perfect body alignment to begin a ballet class. Your teacher would be like, "Oh my God, how long you been doing ballet?" And that's when you drop the key. You're like, first day, but I've been listening to after class podcast.
Yeah, and I think another good image for the chin is thinking of it as parallel to the ground because I know for most of us that are on our phones a lot and we're kind of getting that what they call it tech neck where everyone is kind of hunched over and our chins are tucked and we're all getting double chins. A lot of times we can think that our chin is up and it is still pointed down and tucked a little bit. So thinking of your chin and like underneath your chin as parallel to the ground will help you to get your head in the right position. And like I will say, at least for me, I even because I am prone to kind of the tech neck thing, I have to think about lifting my chin even higher. Like it feels very exaggerated to me. And then I look in the mirror and it just looks normal and correct. So you might, while you're training yourself to keep your chin and your head up,
100%.
it'll probably feel very exaggerated. Like you'll probably think, oh my gosh, I'm tipping my head back. And then you'll look in the mirror and you will not be tipping your head back. Your head will just be straight forward with your chin a little to the top, because so many of us are so used to being all hunched over.
And a great tip to figure it out is record yourself, and especially from the side. So be sideways to the camera and try to not have any mirror or anything so you can really engage with that positioning of the allonge. Give a little bit of a polemon. Then, with your eyes, with your fingers, and all the way to your fingertips. And that would be a great way to do it.
And I think starting to use your head at the bar, I think sometimes you get so afraid of getting it wrong. So many of us that take ballet, we're kind of the perfectionist type and we don't want to do it wrong. And so we tend to just not do it at all if we think we're going to do it wrong. And I think that that really applies to using our heads, even at the bar. A lot of times, if people are unsure which way they should go, they just don't want to use their head at all. So they just look straight forward. But I think, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, like as a teacher, I would rather see students that are using their head in a way that's natural. And then as a teacher, you can work on kind of refining the exact placement versus someone who is just deer in the headlights staring. So I think giving yourself a little more freedom to use your head in a way that feels natural and kind of aligns with the things that we've already talked about, of like if we're saying, use your eyes to look at your hands, allowing your head to incline when your eyes look at your hands. And just doing what feels natural versus doing nothing is a really good way to start, even just at the bar.
And it makes you look more professional. It makes you look like you know what you're doing, rather than just like freaking out and not looking at anything.
Yeah, and I think honestly, to me, at least as a student, it makes bar especially so much more enjoyable when I start incorporating not just the head, but also the eyes and the hands. When I use those three things in class, the class feels so much more fulfilling to me because it actually feels like I was dancing for more of the class. That's where it really starts to feel like you're doing ballet, you know? And so I think, like, for
Yeah.
beginners, don't cut yourself off from using these three things because you're afraid of using them wrong. Like, use them in a way that feels natural and allow yourself to feel like you're dancing a little bit, and then allow your teacher to refine, as you're learning.
I will say a takeaway from today's episode would be to encourage yourself and whatever level of your dance you are at. Encourage yourself to take one of these three elements from the podcast and take it into a class. Focus just on your head. For instance, don't start focusing on the head, on the eyes, and the tilted and the polemon and the shoulders because it's too much. Focus on one thing. Today, this week, you're going to focus on your head and make sure that you really intentionally follow your arms with your head.
If you guys want to tag us in any of your social media posts and let us know what we're working on of one of these three tips, we would love that. And if you would also like to leave us a review if you found this episode helpful, we would really appreciate it. It helps other dancers find the podcast, and we read every single one and so appreciate them. We will catch you guys next time after class.
See ya. Thank you for listening to After Class.
Join the community on YouTube and Instagram, or come dance with us, our weekly Zoom classes for adult ballerinas like you.
Links included in the episode description. Special thank you to our sponsors.
See you next time after class. Podcast produced by Mission Bridge Media.